A crescent moon hangs over the Valley of Siddim, casting silver light on two sleeping cities by the Dead Sea. These are Sodom and Gomorrah, ancient towns alive with midnight revelry and unseen peril. In the narrow alleys, laughter echoes alongside cries of despair. A traveler huddles in a doorway, wincing at the violence in the streets. Here, compassion is a crime and cruelty a sport. Under the moon's gaze, a rich man feasts in a lantern-lit courtyard while, just beyond the wall, a beggar is beaten for daring to seek scraps. Sodom's sin is not hidden in the dark. It parades openly, a brazen challenge to heaven. Yet on this night, two mysterious strangers enter the city gates. They have an otherworldly air, eyes reflecting the starlight with calm purpose. Few notice their arrival as they pass silently through the plaza. One man does see, the lone righteous soul in this city of corruption. Lot, a foreigner who made his home here, recognizes something in the stranger's bearing and insists they take shelter in his house. With anxious hospitality, Lot prepares a meal, baking unleavened bread, and urges them to stay the night safely indoors. Outside, the city's din quiets for a moment, but a different noise begins, whispers spreading through darkened streets that Lot harbors outsiders. Before long, a mob gathers, torches flaring to life and casting wild shadows across Lot's door. The townsmen of Sodom, depraved and bold, pound on the walls. Their voices snarl through the night air. "Bring them out!" they demand. Their intent is horrific, an assault driven by lust and violence. Inside, Lot's heart pounds with dread. He steps onto his threshold, desperate to reason with the crowd. He pleads with them to leave the strangers be, even offering his own daughters if only the mob will abandon their wicked intent. But the rabble roars at this plea, pressing forward. It is a tableau of depravity, faces contorted with greed and cruel delight, fists clutching torches. Sodom has reached its moral nadir. Suddenly the door flies open and a blinding light erupts from within. The mob staggers back, eyes seared by brilliance, not of this world. The two guests reveal themselves as angels, divine messengers cloaked in human form. With a mere gesture, they strike the rioters blind. Panic and confusion sweep through the crowd. The men outside grope at the air and each other, stumbling over cobblestones, howling in fear. Lot trembles, realizing these are no ordinary travelers. The angels turn to him and seize his hand. "Gather your family," one says in an urgent whisper. "We have been sent to destroy this place." Their grave words leave no room for doubt or delay. Lot rushes to round up his household. His wife, skeptical and slow to move, frowns as he urges her to pack only what they can carry. His two daughters, wide-eyed, cling to each other as they throw a cloak over their shoulders. The angels press them, voices low and firm. "Go, now! Flee for your lives! Do not look back, and do not stop anywhere on the plain. Escape to the hills, or else you will be swept away." Lot hesitates, begging to take refuge in a small village within reach, and the angels grant him this one concession. Before the first hint of dawn, they hurry the family out into the cool pre-dawn darkness. As the eastern sky just begins to pale, Lot and his daughters make their way up a rocky path toward the hills. Behind them, his wife trails, her steps heavy with reluctance. A low rumble grows in the distance, like thunder from deep within the earth. Lot's wife pauses, her curiosity and longing pulling her in the wrong direction. In a fatal instant, she turns her head to gaze back at the home they left behind, the city that had been hers. It happens all at once. The sky over Sodom ignites. From the heavens falls a torrent of fire. Blazing rocks and burning sulfur pour down in an unrelenting storm. A great roar, as if the earth itself is screaming, drowns out every other sound. The ground shudders and buckles. Walls of stone and brick in Sodom and Gomorrah crack like eggshells and explode under the assault. Flames engulf everything. Timber and thatch, flesh and bone, all begin to burn and melt in the searing heat. In the city streets, sleepers jolt awake to chaos and hellish light. Men and women run out of their homes in confusion, only to be engulfed by flaming debris raining from above. Screams of terror rise up, only to be swallowed by the cacophony of the inferno. Lot's wife stands frozen on the path, transfixed by the apocalyptic vision behind him. In that searing moment, a wave of heat and salt-laden ash blasts over her. She gasps, and her gasp is cut short as her body stiffens, her skin crystallizing into a pillar of salt. One arm is outstretched toward the doomed city, but she will move no further. She becomes a statue of sodium and chloride, forever a monument to disobedience. Up ahead, Lot and his daughters stumble forward, oblivious to her fate, eyes fixed on the rising slope. Tears and sweat streak Lot's face. He dares not look back, even as he hears the horrifying sounds carried on the wind. The night behind them has turned into day, lit by a firestorm. When the sun finally edges over the hills, it illuminates a landscape forever changed. Sodom and Gomorrah are gone. In their place is a smouldering expanse of blackened ruin, a charnel valley of ash and cinders. Thick smoke rises high into the morning sky, billowing like the smoke of a giant furnace. The fertile green plain that only yesterday bore crops and pastures is scorched to barrenness. Every living thing in the valley, every tree, every blade of grass has been annihilated. From a distance, the patriarch Abraham looks down from the hills where he dwells and sees the dense smoke looming where the cities once lay. His heart grows heavy with sorrow and awe. He recalls how he pleaded for these cities to be spared if even 10 righteous people lived there. Not even 10 could be found. The judgment he hoped to prevent has come to pass. The Valley of Siddim has been turned into an earthly hell, then reduced to silent, lifeless soot. The tale of Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction is etched into the memory of 3 faiths. In the Hebrew scriptures, it stands as a stark example of divine justice and divine mercy narrowly won for one family. The Torah emphasizes not only the lust and violence of the mob, but also the callous indifference and cruelty that filled these cities. One ancient Hebrew prophet later wrote that the sin of Sodom was pride and abundant food, while the poor suffered outside her gates. In Jewish tradition, Sodom epitomized the ugliness of a society that outlawed charity and mocked empathy, a place so evil that it could not be allowed to stand. In Christian teaching, fire and brimstone became synonymous with God's wrath because of this story. Sodom's name itself grew into a symbol of decadent sin, its annihilation, a warning of the fate awaiting unrepentant wickedness. And in the Islamic account, the prophet Lot implored his people to cease their obscene practices and wrongdoing, but they jeered and rejected him. The Quran describes how, when God's decree came, he made the city's highest part its lowest. The towns were flipped upside down and rained upon them stones of hard clay in layers. The people of Lot were wiped out, leaving behind a ruin as a clear sign for those who contemplate. Thus, across cultures, the story endures as a warning. When human corruption grows too great, when a society turns its back on all that is just and humane, then catastrophe may fall from the sky like the wrath of heaven. Thousands of years later, the once fertile plain near the Dead Sea lies silent under a brittle crust of salt. Nothing grows here now. Beneath the cracked earth, an archaeological team is digging, uncovering the ghost of an ancient city. From the excavation pit, a shout breaks the quiet. They have hit a layer of charcoal and ash. A hush falls as blackened timbers and scorched bricks emerge into the sunlight, the unmistakable fingerprint of some ancient disaster. The sun beats down as the lead archaeologist examines a shard of pottery lifted from the ruins. Its surface is strangely glazed, partially melted to glass. The fragment's edges are bubbled and warped, as if flash heated far beyond any kiln's capability. "This wasn't a normal fire," he murmurs, and his team murmurs in agreement. Something almost unimaginably hot must have swept through this place. Nearby, another researcher sifts the ashen soil and discovers tiny metallic spherules mixed in the dirt. Microscopic droplets of metal and sand fused by intense heat. Under her magnifier, she finds grains of quartz with telltale shock fractures spiderwebbing their interiors. Such damage occurs only under crushing pressure, the kind unleashed by a sudden, colossal explosion. The scientists trade astonished glances. These ruins preserve evidence of a cataclysm beyond anything the city's inhabitants could have caused or imagined. Hunched over maps and artifacts, the team debates what could have unleashed such destruction. One points to the seismic fault running under this valley. Perhaps a powerful earthquake struck, toppling the city and rending open the earth. The Dead Sea region is full of natural asphalt and volatile gases. A quake might have released clouds of methane and sulfur from underground. If those gases ignited, whether by a cooking fire or a spark from grinding rocks, the air itself could have burst into flames. The researchers picture it, a firestorm erupting from the ground, flaming debris raining from above. To a terrified witness, it would seem like the sky itself was raining fire. The acrid smell of sulfur would have choked the air as the city burned. Another scientist notes that the destruction is too widespread and intense to be explained by an earthquake alone. He suggests a cosmic culprit, a meteor that exploded in the atmosphere overhead. The others listen as he describes a scenario akin to a small atomic blast from the heavens. A meteoric airburst above the valley could have produced a fireball hotter than the sun, followed by a shockwave that pulverized everything in its path. In a flash, the city would be incinerated. A blast of superheated wind would then roar through, leveling structures and igniting every wooden beam. Flaming fragments would rain down like a deadly hail. One could imagine that morning from afar. Perhaps a shepherd on a distant hill saw a sudden light blossom on the horizon and felt a hot wind, never realizing he had witnessed the obliteration of a city. Then comes an uncanny clue. The soil layer of destruction is laced with salts. In some samples, up to a quarter of the sediment is crystalline salt. The team falls silent at this finding, each recalling the old story of Lot's wife and the rain of fire and brimstone. If a meteor blast struck near the Dead Sea, it could have vaporized the salty waters or blasted salt crystals high into the air, blanketing the region in white. An earthquake might have done something similar, spewing brine and salt from subterranean deposits. Either way, the once fertile soil would have been poisoned. Indeed, after this catastrophe, it seems the area was abandoned for centuries, a dead zone of ashen earth where nothing would grow, much like the Bible describes a land of smoke and ruin. By dusk, the team gathers quietly at their campsite. The lead archaeologist lingers at the edge of the dig, gazing over the barren landscape. He cradles the glazed pottery shard, its greenish surface gleaming with a frozen memory of fire. It's just like the story, he thinks to himself, awestruck. In Genesis, it is written that brimstone and fire fell from heaven, leaving only smoking desolation. Here and now, he holds tangible proof of an ancient apocalypse. A city ended in a day by forces beyond human control. Was it a freak cosmic event? A geological catastrophe? Or, as the ancients believed, the wrath of God? In this place, the line between myth and history blurs. The evidence tells him how it happened. The scorch marks, the melted clay, the blasted salt. But the deeper reason lies in dusty scriptures and cultural memory. As the sky darkens, he finds himself whispering into the warm night air, "What really happened here so long ago?" The ruins have no voice to answer. Only the wind blows over the salted plain, its soft hiss, the last ghostly echo of a disaster nearly beyond belief. Night falls again over the Dead Sea. Stars glint in the sky like silent witnesses. Along the sea's edge stands a jagged pillar of salt, uncannily shaped like a human form. Locals call it Lot's wife. Not far from this forlorn pillar, the Dead Sea stretches out as a flat, shimmering darkness. Its waters are so bitter and salty that no fish can live in them. It is as if the land itself remembers the wrath that fell here. Some legends even claim this lifeless sea was born from the ashes of Sodom, a poisoned lake covering the sins of the past. The desert wind whispers around the rocks, carrying a story that has echoed through the ages. For thousands of years, the tale of Sodom and Gomorrah has been told and retold as a dire warning. In Jewish tradition, it stands as a lesson in justice and mercy. The prophets of Israel condemned Sodom's pride, gluttony, and cruel neglect of the poor, cautioning their own people to repent, lest they suffer the same fate. Christian preachers invoked Sodom to warn against moral decay, urging the faithful to remember Lot's wife, not to look back longingly at a life of sin once they had turned away from it. And the Quran recounts how the people of Lot defied their prophet's warnings, and were obliterated by a mighty blast that turned their city upside down. A rain of stones fell upon them, leaving behind, as scripture says, a clear sign for those who reflect. Across cultures and centuries, Sodom and Gomorrah became more than two ancient cities. They became a parable of divine justice and human folly. Why does this story endure? Partly because of its moral weight, a stark reminder that great wickedness can bring about great ruin, and partly because of the terrifying spectacle at its heart. The image of a thriving city wiped out in a single night seizes our imagination with both fear and awe. It's no accident that even today, fire and brimstone are synonymous with righteous punishment. That phrase was born from the memory of Sodom's end. The tale reminds us that peace and prosperity, however secure they seem, hang by a fragile thread and can be severed without warning. Under these same stars, the question lingers. Was Sodom's destruction the work of an outraged God or the strike of a mindless comet? Perhaps it was both. If one believes in providence, even a random meteor could serve as the instrument of divine will. To those who survived that dreadful dawn, the distinction likely did not matter. All they knew was that doom had come, and it felt like judgment, absolute and inescapable. It was as if human sinfulness had drawn down calamity from the cosmos, a convergence of moral corruption and natural fury, branding itself into human memory. In this way, science and faith converge, telling one story through two languages. A superheated blast from the sky or a firestorm from the earth could produce the very calamity described in Scripture. What physics and geology explain in terms of energy and elements, faith explains in terms of sin and divine decree. Two narratives for the same event, one detailing how it happened, the other why it happened. Imagine the modern investigator standing at the edge of the ruins, a foot in both worlds of understanding. In one hand, he holds a charred fragment of pottery glazed by an ancient blast. In the other, the text that chronicled this catastrophe. The night breeze carries a faint scent of salt and sulfur, as if the land is whispering its memory. He closes his eyes and for a moment hears distant echoes, panic cries, thunderous roars, the sounds of a city's last breaths. When he opens his eyes, all is still. The sky above is brilliant with stars. Somewhere up there, a meteor may wander, unnoticed. Somewhere beneath his feet, the faults in the earth lie dormant. He knows that the full truth of what happened will likely never be known with certainty. But the meaning of the story, the warning it carries, has far outlived the city's stones. The ruins have crumbled to dust, but their lesson remains intact. The wind sighs over the Dead Sea, rippling its lifeless waters. That lone salt pillar stands vigil in the darkness, a mute reminder of the peril of looking back. Across the valley where music and laughter once rang, only silence reigns. Yet the story of Sodom still speaks, carried on each whispering wind and in every retelling. What caused Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction? The answer spans both heaven and earth. It may be that human evil invited disaster, whether by the hand of God or by the forces of nature unleashed. In the end, a rain of fire erased those cities so that we might remember the price of unchecked sin. As a new dawn approaches over the Dead Sea, one can almost see the pillar of salt catch the first light, a ghostly silhouette against the grey morning. The tale endures, a flicker on the horizon of history, forever urging us to remember and to heed its unforgettable warning.